You'll never will I ever end me. I like ice, but you brought it on yourself, cause it was about war. 58 counties screaming for the mind. The war's coming forth, never with the disguise. Another A-bomb for you, it really was it. Shot medals in my vocabulary. Rolling with the punches, I'm roll beating and jumping. Dealing with the problems, I got to be coping. Making it fit, and I click just like a Lego. I'll be Casio, but you can be tackled from the FBI to the CIA. I'm clearing out the path and here to LA. I be from C-Town, kicking the roof down, ripping up the mic and way past sundown. As a world, turn. As a world, turn.
And we are back. The Gardos are still alive from the last time we were on, and we are ready to talk about the Detroit and the Yankees series. Tim McCullough here with Nate Bope for another episode of Prospects of the Land. Nate, how we doing this week?
I'll be honest, we could be doing a little bit better. I got a lot of personal stuff going on, and I'm just very, very tired. But otherwise, sports-wise, we are doing very, very well. Yes, the Guards are still alive, and we will break down the series against the Yankees in just a little bit, as well as talk on one thing within the minor league system and some of the prospects that I do want to touch on. You don't know what it is. You will hear in a matter of moments, but let's first ask you how you're doing, sir.
Oh, I'm doing great. Oregon Ducks won on Saturday. It's a good week.
First of all, okay, so I will say, as a Buckeye fan, in the moment, I was like, Dan Lanning, what are you doing? Like, this is so cheap. I hope that we beat the. But like looking back on it, and as I was going to bed that night, I know it's getting outlawed and everything now, but I mean, going to bed that night and just looking at that situation from a sports fan and the intentional 12 men, like, good job, Dan Lanning. You did your homework.
For sure. Yeah, that was a crazy game.
No, I mean, crazy game. I would be shocked if that's not the Big Ten championship. I would be utterly shocked.
100%. Because I don't think it'll be Penn State, but
no, Penn State hasn't looked great, and I think, I mean, they don't have to play Oregon, but Ohio State rolls into Happy Valley. I mean, with all the chaos we've seen, it would not shock me if Penn State won that game, but I mean, Ohio State just proved there against Oregon why they are a really good team. Now, the secondary's got to get better, and again, we could talk college football all day, not a college football show, but hey, let's start diving on in, because where were we last when we talked about the Guard series? What was it, 2 games down? So we got to recap 3, 4,
2
and
games
5?
down. It was a split. So we went into game 3 because I remember we were saying if we get game 3, then could we see bye before? So
yep. Okay, so let's go. I mean, we're going to run through these really, really quickly here. We're going to run through games 3 and 4 really quickly. So, I mean, game 3, I mean, not really much to touch on from the Guardian side. You got Alex Cobb pitching that game, and he didn't necessarily do his best. Alex Cobb obviously no longer on the roster, but we'll touch on that later. Alex Cobb didn't necessarily do his best. The bullpen did pretty all right. Eli Morgan gave up the run and 2 hits. Everyone else pretty much played shutdown baseball. But overall, I mean, when you take a look at the performance, I mean, it started off early in the first for Detroit. I mean, this was a Tigers team and that wouldn't go away. And this was one of those cases where the Guards just couldn't hit. And we've seen that a lot this year.
Oh, yeah. 100%. That game 3, it was tough to just even find a hit, let alone just getting guys on to, score. It was a lot like that game 2. Obviously, we found our groove in 4 and 5, but yeah, that game 3 was a struggle.
Yeah, it was absolutely a struggle, but you move on to game 4, and this is where the series really pivoted. Game 4 was awesome. Cleveland did exactly what they had to do. Lane Thomas coming through, and we'll talk more about him later, but Lane Thomas obviously coming through and hit the single, which ended up scoring Quan. So really good job by the Guardians to come out of the gates there storming. Detroit was able to take a lead, though. Or not take a lead. They were able to tie it up there in the bottom of the second because Trey Sweeney was able to hit that sacrifice fly. I believe, yes, it scored Colt Keith, and then Ramirez finally got going. Ramirez hit a solo home run, thank goodness, in the top of the 5th. I mean, we know his playoff numbers are not great. They are not great, and it probably will demerit what some people's opinion of him may be, but we know Jose, really, really good player, finally got that bat going. It was immediately answered in the bottom half of the frame by Zach McKinstry, who ended up hitting the game-tying home run at that point. And then the very next inning, traffic on the base paths for the Tigers. They did it all series, just able to score in 1 run. So that left us after 6, 3-4 Detroit. And then, I mean, it is tension time in Cleveland. Everyone is getting nervous because even a 1-run game at this late, the bullpen is fantastic, but I mean, they beat the bullpen there. I mean, they beat Cade Smith, who's been nearly untouchable. So
Tim Herron and Hunter Gaddis also looked really shaky in their outings too. So they did a good job of getting to the bullpen.
And Bybee, I mean, did about as good as he could have. Cade Smith, of course, allowing that. He was fantastic that entire Detroit series. Talk about him a little bit more for Game 5, but in that Game 4, I mean, again, it was kind of like the moment where we saw who was it? It was Kerry Carpenter hit the home run off of Clase. You just kind of went, what? Like Clase is beatable? You kind of just went and were like, huh? Cade Smith just gave up a run? Like it was one of those moments where you were just kind of like, I can't believe this is happening. And that's when a little bit of panic mode started to set in. Now, David Fry had not been hitting well as of late, had an extremely good first half. It's why he was an all-star. Fell off a little bit in the second half, and we know I think he has a hurt shoulder or elbow, so he can't really play the field, and we'll talk more about that later as we dive on into the Yankees series. But then David Fry comes through. You were talking a lot of trash on David Fry.
I was.
And I told
take it all back.
I mean, a massive pinch hit home run. Flew that thing to left center. It scored Stephen Kwan. He stepped in for Kyle Manzardo. And, I mean, let's talk about him in that regard. And a little bit later, they got the squeeze. The dude just hit a go-ahead 2-run home run. And then to give the Guardians an extra insurance run, the same guy that just clobbered one out of the ballpark was asked by Stephen Vogt, hey, do you think you can lay a bunt down here? To which David Fry's response was, well, I wasn't a very good hitter in high school. I bunted a whole lot. Wasn't a very good hitter in high school. You just hit a go-ahead 2-run home run in the ALDS, my friend. He put down the squeeze. They executed the squeeze. Are you kidding me? David Fry, have yourself a day.
Huge role in that too, and we'll obviously touch on him later too. But Brian Rocchio,
the Tigers got deep fried, my friend.
Brian Rocchio doing a good job, obviously running the bases, and he's him and Kwan. A lot of people are going to say your MVPs of the season were Naylor and Jose. Your MVPs of the postseason,
so far at least,
Stephen Kwan and Brian Rocchio. Without those guys and Lane Thomas,
we'll talk
Brian
about that
Rocchio.
Later.
Wow, what a series he had.
And
sure.
And we'll talk about, again, him and Thomas and Fry and some of the other guys here later. But, I mean, Clase came in, a leadoff double. But, I mean, at that point, I mean, yes, Clase allowed the 1 run. And I think a lot of people may look at that on the stat sheet and say, oh, he allowed a run. It was really nothing. It was absolutely nothing at all. So the Guards win Game 4. And then, obviously, what a lot of Guardians fans did not want. They wanted to win that thing in 4, because that means you had to face Tariq Skubal twice. Yeah. And Detroit ends up taking the lead in the top of the fifth. It was a pitcher's duel for the majority. And actually they started, who did they start that game? Yeah, they started Matthew Boyd, and he was pitching really, really well. He pitched 2 innings, allowed only 1 hit, walked only 1 batter, and had 5 strikeouts. He pitched phenomenally. I mean, obviously hindsight is 2020 and the Guards won the game. We'll tell you how later. Do you mind the decision to pull him there? Because he did have traffic on the base paths. We know who's on the other end in Tariq Skubal. It was about to be that time, though, where Matthew Boyd was going to see the order for a second time. And Stephen Vogt, not just in that Detroit series, but throughout the 2 games that we've seen with the Yankees series so far, he has not really let the starting pitcher go that deep.
Well, I think there's been sides to it. I mean, Boyd walked the first batter of that game, so not to say his stuff wasn't good, because it was, but I think you really got to rely on your bullpen, which is what they went to, and obviously it worked out for them. You even got great outings out of guys like Eli Morgan, who he seemed to struggle in big moments, but he came up in a huge way there. Tim Herron, he did a good job.
Cade Smith,
who I've loved since 2 years ago when he was in Akron, and I knew he was going to be this guy when he got up there.
Yep.
And then Class A did
Kind of the
Class A things.
same.
Gaddis was solid. I mean,
Yeah.
every one of them were good.
And with Cade Smith, it was kind of the same conversation back then, a couple years ago, that we're having with Andrew Walters now.
Yeah, for sure. And then Sabrowski, another guy who came
Has
in
been
and
great.
he did great. Yeah, for sure. I was questioning the decision, but obviously panned out. Love what Sabrowski brings to the table.
And obviously Walters gave up the run there in that game 5. But let's fast forward to the bottom of the 5th, my friend. The big time moment. Let's break this one down play by play. So the Guardians are already down 1 run. And with Tariq Skubal on the mound, you look at that and you think crap. And I am using a very less intense word that I'm sure a lot of other people out there were thinking. They were probably thinking, oh, you know what, right? But you get to the bottom of the 5th, and I mean, you go ahead and you lead this thing off. Andres Jimenez, who has not done super well with the bat this postseason, but has came through a time or two
when he needed him.
Yep, got a big single there. Then we touch on Brian Rocchio, the amount of just a crazy amount of production that he's had offensively so far. I mean, this is career stuff that we're seeing out of Brian Rocchio this postseason. He struck out there. So, I mean, you definitely got a little bit nervous, but that left the top of the lineup coming up. Quan ended up singling, and then David Fry reached on an infield single. Just a really, really tough play. I think it was mishandled by a couple of Detroit fielders as well. And that loaded the bases for Jose Ramirez. Remember, a 1-0 game at this point. And Jose, I think, took strike 1. No, did not take strike 1. Swung at a sinker that was right over the heart of the plate. I mean, not a very... obviously, I'm not the one to critique Tariq Skubal here, one of the best pitchers in the game right now.
The best pitcher in the game right now.
But that sinker over the middle to Jose, I mean, fouled it away. Jose saw the pitch well. And then the absolute worst thing that Tariq Skubal could have done was hit Jose Ramirez, and it did. And I think a lot of people in that stadium lost their mind. Oh, we just tied wait, is Jose okay? Because he got hit like right, like right here, like right about where you're funny, and that not a good feeling. I can't even think about it. It just gives me goosebumps and chills. That hurts.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. But I mean, right. So, I mean, Skubal, obviously, he doesn't walk guys at all, period. So he's not going to hit anybody. So it obviously showed. It goes to show that you can't give Jose anything easy to hit, and that's not what Skubal was trying to do. He was trying to pitch around him.
Well,
and
I mean,
pay off.
I saw very, very few people, thankfully, say you did that. Why would Tariq Skubal hit Jose on purpose? It's the worst thing he could have
ties
done.
A game. Right.
It is the absolute number one worst thing Tariq Skubal could have done, and it is because, okay, so let's take it inside the mind of Tariq Skubal for just 1 second. He's thinking, okay, crap, I just hit this guy. I've been kind of getting beat up here. I mean, he hadn't thrown many balls in the inning at all. I mean, a lot of those were right over the plate. I think 2 balls previous to that before hitting Jose Ramirez and tying the game up. Jose ends up getting on base. It juices the crowd. Jose's like, I'm okay. He gets down there to the base, and Lane Thomas comes up, which is exactly the matchup that you want. You can't walk him because that would lead the game to being in Cleveland's favor. You have full confidence if you're Detroit because Tariq Skubal is on the mound, but this is exactly why Lane Thomas is here for this big matchup as a righty batter facing a left-handed pitcher. And I hammered it home ever since they traded for him. The splits show that Lane Thomas crushes left-handed pitching. And the other thing that's been important to note is in this postseason, he did it with that 3-run homer in game 1. He loves to swing at the first pitch. And let's take it inside the mind of Tariq Skubal. He's thinking, okay, I just hit this guy. Let's reestablish the strike zone. Let's give this guy a hard-to-hit strike. What did he do? He gave him a sinker over the heart of the plate. Boom. And Lane Thomas crushes lefties, crushes the first pitch, and crushes a grand salami off of the AL Cy Young winner. What a moment.
I mean, that was, in my opinion, easily a top 2 just moment of watching the Guardians in my entire life. It's tied with the Lindor Grand Slam. It's right up there.
Yeah, and a lot of the people
Crazy.
speaking on social media that were at that game, obviously I wasn't, so I can't speak to
Right.
this, but they said it got as loud, if not louder, than when Lindor hit that.
And I think that's just because it was off Skubal, the guy who owned you for the past, definitely the last game, and kind of up until that inning did in that game as well. And I mean, obviously you mentioned first pitch, and that's what I think what made it so much better. Even the call, I keep watching the Thomas home run on replay. The announcers go, loves first pitch, or something along those lines, like loves first pitch.
He loves
swinging,
to ambush
like
that first pitch. I think if you
Along the
even
lines
go
of
look
that,
at
yeah.
like his baseball savant or baseball, I think baseball savant would tell you this. I think Lane Thomas, and I can confirm this later. I'm not going to do it right now because it'd take a little bit of digging. But I think if you dig deep enough, it would not surprise. And I'm not going to say this for a fact, but it would not surprise me to see Lane Thomas be up towards the top echelon of MLB on guys who have the highest swing rate on the first pitch.
And that's what you need. I mean, I've seen a lot of, just even in the Yankees series, guys just taking first pitch down the middle. I think we need a couple more guys to kind of step up, and swing at that first pitch. I mean, I don't really see a reason why not. Right? Exactly.
Yeah, and Lane Thomas, but that's why, I mean, Cleveland won the trade, my friend. You don't win that Detroit series without Lane Thomas.
1,000%. Yep.
You just don't. And it doesn't matter. I mean, if Josh Naylor was the guy behind Jose Ramirez, who says he doesn't come up with a big hit, right? We will never know. But the 3-run home run against Detroit in the first game, the grand slam obviously won them, and there was some more scoring that went back and forth, but that's all we're going to touch on from the Detroit series. And I mean, I don't know about you, to me, making the ALCS was a wildly more successful season than a lot of people could have imagined with this team.
So, I mean, over the moon expectations for this team, but I mean, they've kind of lived up to the hype that I kind of brought to them. I knew that they were going to win the Central. I didn't think the Royals are going to be much competition, but I thought the Twins were going to really hang in there. So I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I thought we were going to win the Central.
And I think we've established this on air before. You were in the minority in that, and I mean that's one of the moments where you look really smart. So hats off to you on that. You were definitely in the minority, because myself and I think a lot of other Guardians fans were thinking this lineup does not have a lot of pop. They didn't do a whole lot in the offseason to get better. It's going to be a very young team surrounding Naylor and Bieber and Jose, and then obviously Bieber goes down and all hell breaks loose, and everyone's like, oh, the season is over. And then you run up. I mean, you make the postseason, but you kind of limp down the stretch a little bit. You don't play your best baseball. You run in to the hottest team in baseball in the Detroit Tigers in the AL Cy Young winner. And I mean, especially after that game 3, people counted Cleveland out. They were like, okay, well, Cleveland is dead. Even if they get it to a game 5, Skubal is on the mound, and the kids fought. They fought really hard.
They did. But obviously it was a tough series, and a lot of people counted us out in the Yankees series from the start, which obviously there's a long way to go in that series still.
Down
Yankees
2-0 already.
Down 2-0, but in my opinion, if you can beat Skubal, you can beat the Yankees. Like, Tarek Skubal put on some of the best pitching I've ever seen in that game too.
Well, so here's the thing
about to him. So
here's the thing about the Yankee series that makes it really, really tough. Like, really tough.
It's our pitching against their hitting.
Yes, but it's also okay. So I mean, I'll just break it down like this: everybody coming into this postseason had a weakness. There was a weakness within every team. With the Guardians, it was their inability to drive in runs. It was their inability to get that big hit. We've seen it happen. We saw it happen in the Detroit series. We haven't seen it happen in this Yankee series yet, right? They haven't really had that big moment. They haven't gotten that big hit, even though they've had plenty of chances to do so, and we'll dive on into more of that later. With the Yankees coming into this postseason, the weakness was their bullpen, was their inability to finish games, and the starting rotation has been good. Like, Rodon has been good, Cole has been good, Heel had been good. He's a rookie this year that has pitched really well. None of them had been really phenomenal, and the bullpen was not great. The starting pitching, you've gotten excellent starts out of both Garrett Cole and out of Carlos. Well, maybe not excellent out of Garrett Cole. He did not have one of those like Garrett Cole.
Weak.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did not have one of those stereotypical I am Garrett Cole performances there in that game. But then you go back and you look at what Rodon did. He was absolutely phenomenal. And that was game one. We'll kind of talk about game one just a little bit here. Game one was the epitome of uncertainty at the starting pitching role because we had no idea what we were going to get from Alex Cobb, and they had no idea what they were going to get from Carlos Rodon. They got what they wanted to see. The Guardians did not.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much hit it perfectly. I mean, they got White Sox Rodon, it seemed like, where he was just on fire. He couldn't miss, and then Cobb struggled. I mean, I kind of thought he would, but again, that Yankees lineup's not an easy task. Once you, I mean, take down Soto, MVP candidate, you go right to the other MVP candidate, Aaron Judge. And I mean, that's just kind of just, I mean, salary cap. It's what it comes down to. It's tough to beat a team that spends, it seems like $5 billion and you kind of spend $5. So obviously you're going to need to play tougher than them. That's how you're going to win.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I mean, really, when you come on in and break things down, I mean, the Guardians have had base runners in all of these games. Like they scored a couple runs there late in that game against New York. Didn't really matter that much. You were already down 4-0, but you score a couple of runs there. Rocchio with a home run. Where did that go? Okay, Brian, I see you. Okay. And then Rocchio ended up getting on base later. Kwan hit a single, which actually ended up scoring Andres Jimenez there in the 8th. And there was a big moment there in the bottom of the 8th inning where the Guardians, one swing of the bat, they could have tied it up. Failed to come through on that one. But I want to talk about some of the guys in the bullpen from that one because Sobrowski gave up, I believe, his first major league run in that game, which, I mean, okay, Eric, you're giving your first run up to the Yankees in the playoff series. Okay, I see you. Still struck out 3 guys. But Pedro Avila was the big story in that one. Both you and I, when we were kind of going through at the beginning of this postseason, like, okay, who do we want on the roster? Who do we not? We both were kind of like, Pedro Avila, you can kind of take a back seat. We don't really want you because it just seems like, because it just seems like, well, I mean, a lot of Guardians have taken offense to a lot of things people have said. Look at what people said about Brian Rocchio. He's your shortstop of the future now. Lane Thomas, people were really questioning things. Lane Thomas has come through in the biggest moments possible. David Fry was getting crap, and he came through with an absolutely huge moment that turned the series around. You don't go back to Game 5. You don't get a chance to go back to Cleveland. Lane Thomas doesn't have a chance to win that grand slam without the David Fry home run. Like, it really just a ton of guys stepping up in big moments. And both of these Yankee games have been winnable. Like, the Guardians have left traffic on the base paths in game 1, but especially in game 2. Oh my goodness. Last night was awful. Last night was
couldn't
awful.
Drive in anything. You were getting hits, you just couldn't drive them in.
You were getting so many hits. And then obviously the Yankees are going to do what they did. And Tanner Bybee did not have his best stuff, which, I mean, again, expect the unexpected when you were talking about my apologies here. I mean, expect the unexpected, but a couple of errors and stuff too. Some fielding errors that allowed some runs to score. For as well as Rocchio has played defensively this postseason, that is an inexcusable drop.
100%. And I mean, another big thing from last night, I know a lot of people have a problem with it. I don't really see why. So I want to get your opinion on this.
Is it about the walking Judge thing?
Intentionally walking Soto. Yep. And that would load the bases. You had, I'm pretty sure, I want to say runners on 3rd and 2nd at the time. You would intentionally walk Soto with first free. And then that's
why they did it.
I don't have a problem with that because it sets up the double play. A lot of people, it's definitely the people, not Guardians fans, but MLB are like, whoa, you're gonna walk Soto to face,
and you even
saw sets up double play.
Well, and you even saw Anthony Volpe from the dugout, the Yankees dugout, go like, "No way, this is it. Are you sure? There's no way you're doing that." And I mean,
Soto's been better at the plate though in the postseason.
Well, and that's what I was just going to say, but I was going to preface that by saying common logic would absolutely say what a lot of people were saying, and like, it's not a bad point that people are making. People are not making a bad point in that, like, seriously, you're gonna let Aaron Judge come to the plate with the bases loaded? Like, dude, what are you doing? Like, it's not bad logic. It's not bad logic at all. But when you take a look at the postseason, up to that point, Soto had already had a home run. He had a home run in game 1. And Aaron Judge had not hit a postseason home run yet. Now, he later would there in the late stages of that game. He had a 2-run shot in the 7th to really drive that game home for the New York Yankees, to really kind of say, okay, yeah, we're going to put this game away now. Judge saw pitch well and hit his first home run, which is really dangerous for the Guardians the rest of the way this series. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But I mean, at the time, the numbers supported it. I think the personnel and the matchup supported it, because wasn't Cade Smith on the mound at that point?
He was. Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, Cade Smith had been wheeling and dealing. And yeah, you give up the sacrifice fly and you allow a run to score. But who says Soto doesn't hit a 2-run gap? Or a 2-run double? They already had base paths and traffic there, and then all of a sudden you're in an even worse scenario, because now you got
still got to face Judge.
Yeah, and now you got Juan Soto on, who was a phenomenal base runner, or has been so far this season, and then Judge it comes up with only 1 out, has a 4-run lead, and I mean, Cade Smith had been beat again. You're losing all confidence on the mound. I don't mind the decision at all. Obviously, hindsight's 2020, but at that time, the numbers did support it.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. It set up the double play, if anything.
To people that are watching out there, people that are listening and watching, please put down what you thought about it and your opinions. That's, again, that was one of the big, and even like Jeff Passan out there was sort of like, whoa.
And
like,
again, it was more so like
decision.
It was more so not Guardians fans. It was just people around the MLB. I mean, like I saw countless tweets and just even Instagram posts about Volpe freaking out, and people like the MLB tweet out like, "Oh, Guardians are intentionally walking Soto to face Judge. Like, are they crazy?"
The MLB
sets up a double play.
The MLB needs to do a better job of hyping up the Guardians, because every time the Yankees do something, I mean, this is no knock to the social media people over. I mean, it kind of is a little bit, but I mean, every time the Yankees do something, home run Soto, home run Judge, the Yankees extend the lead. And that's like, oh, well, Brian Rocchio just hit a home run here. You can watch that down here. Oh, Jose just hit his second home run in the postseason. You can watch that down here.
I mean, I think they probably gave more screen time and to Taylor Swift on their social media platforms over the Guardians. Like it's getting to that point. It's kind of nuts.
If you're going to show up, at least support your boyfriend, show up in Guardians gear, which Travis Kelce didn't even do, which kind of shocked me, but I don't really care. People are making a big deal about that. That's the most stupid conversation ever. I don't care. I really don't. I don't care what Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce were. They doomed the Guardians. No, they didn't. Here's what doomed the Guardians in game 1. Ready? Wild pitches.
Yeah, and that is another thing I want to go to. Would you rather, from here on out, start Bo Naylor or Austin Hedges? Because I'm 100% on one side, and I want to hear what you think.
I know what side you're on. You're on the Austin Hedges campaign, and
1,000%.
He's, of course, Austin Hedges had to come up with the bases loaded 2 out in a huge spot in the game yesterday. Of course,
and I'm not defending his bat whatsoever. I'm fully 100% on. He's the worst hitter in the league, but defensively, he is an all-star. I don't care what anybody says.
Well, then why don't you go ahead and make your case against Bo Naylor really quickly? Because I have a counterpoint to what you and a ton of other people have been saying about Bo Naylor. So you go ahead and make your case.
Here's my thing with Bo Naylor. Me personally, I have the same batting average as Bo Naylor in the postseason. And so does Austin Hedges. We're both hitting 0. We don't have a hit. And that is why there's no reason to play Bo Naylor. If they both hit about the same, they both float in the 180 range, anywhere from there. I know Hedges is hitting 175 to end the season. Bo Naylor was hitting almost, I think it was 200 exact. 30-point difference when you can get an all-star behind the plate, or you can get what Bo Naylor was doing. And Cantillo wasn't throwing beautiful pitches whatsoever, but you saw Yankees catcher, I want to say, Austin Wells. He was making great scoops, and I know that's what Hedges can do.
He made a really big stop.
Bo Naylor, there were two specifically. One, Cantillo missed high, way above the zone. The ball hit in his glove, and I'm pretty sure just went to the backstop. Another one, he tried to pick it. It was in his glove again, and then he just let it roll. So if they're both not going to hit, I'm going to fully sacrifice that spot to be a for sure out and just get all-star defense behind the plate. Then float around with a Bo Naylor where he's going to get a hit maybe 1 out of every 25 at-bats in the postseason. I'm going to take the all-star defense.
And look, know that what I'm about to say, not only to you, but to the people out there listening and watching, That's a perfectly valid point. Like, yes, Austin Hedges is a for sure out. And I want to bring up something else here in just a little bit that I think is really hurting the Guardians right now that is not getting talked about enough whatsoever. And we'll talk about that just a little bit. But I mean, my counterpoint to like some of those stops Bo Naylor was going to have to make were really, really hard. Now, obviously, we put a lot of pressure on the guy. He's still really young and he's still trying to develop, and he's trying to develop in postseason play, mind you. Throw the ball over the damn plate.
Yeah, you got a good point there. But then again, I don't know. As a catcher, you got to be able to save runs too. And I think Hedges brings more run value. Yeah, he's never going to get
absolutely does.
Yeah, he's never going to get an RBI. But I mean, you heard the announcers last night say, "Oh, Austin Wells, like when I think Jose was on third, he saved a run by just making a stop." And they said that's
blocked it with his bicep. The game would have been tied.
They said it's pretty much the like equivalent of just hitting a solo shot, and it really is. And I don't think Bo Naylor behind the plate does really anything for you where Hedges.
Well, and despite all the wild pitches, the Guardians were in the game. They probably still lose because, again, they couldn't drive anything in. The Guardians also probably still lose in that second game, even though with all the errors and things that happened. But obviously, again, we will have no idea what had happened at that point, and butterfly effect and all those fun things. But here's what I think. I mean, my thing is yeah, Bo Naylor should have made a couple of those stops, but you had 4 or 5 wild pitches in that game. If they were considered pass balls, I'd feel a little differently. But the fact of the matter is they were wild pitches because they hit the dirt first. Yes, your job as a catcher is to get in front. You are valuable not only with your bat, which is why we love guys like Cooper Ingle and Jacob Cozart in our minor league system, guys that have just been hitting. And I mean, maybe you see them come up sometimes, but here's what I think is really hurting the Cleveland Guardians right now. And it is David Fry's okay, so let me back up from that. You probably just know what I'm going to say there, but it's David Fry's inability to play the field. Yes, you can look at the bullpen. I mean, for the most part, it's been really good. Yeah, they've given up a couple runs. The starting pitching is what I meant to say there. The starting pitching hasn't been as good as it could have been. The defense, apart from a couple really nice plays, especially in game 2, they made a ton of errors. So you could absolutely point to that. The bats not being able to drive anyone in. I mean, you have so much traffic on the base paths with hits and walks. And I think twice or thrice in that game 2, the Guardians left the bases loaded, and a couple more times they left 2 runners on. Something that they can't afford to do against the team in the Yankees that when they turn it on can score runs at will. But yes, the bats need to get better. Yes, you need guys to come up with those big hits. But as long as you keep the game within reason, one swing of the bat can change it. We saw that late in both game 4 and 5 against Detroit. But David Fry, and it's not a knock on him, it's just hurting this team a lot because, I mean, Hedges is an automatic out. Bo Naylor hasn't been producing with the glove or the bat. David Fry's had a big hit for you, and he's a guy that can play catcher. But because of his injury, he can't play the field.
Right, and I don't really playing the field's not the big thing for me because you don't need him at first. You have Manzardo and Naylor, and you don't need him in the outfield. The only spot you need him in is, I mean, you're right, it's catcher because he's that utility guy. He can play anywhere, but you need him at catcher if he can catch. And I'm not saying every game.
They said it on the broadcast because of the injury. He can't catch.
But if in the regular season, if you can catch above 33% of games for this team, that's just. It helps so much because you don't see catchers that can hit anymore. We've hammered it home. That's why we praise
JT Real Muto was even one of those catchers, and he has not had the offensive performance we're used to seeing from him.
Right. I mean, catchers don't hit anymore. So David Fry he has that bat that can hit. So if you can plug him in at catcher, I mean, and I'm not saying every game because he's not an everyday catcher, but if you can plug him in maybe every other day, maybe out of 6 games, maybe 2 times like that. Kind of every third game catcher. It helps.
And the reality of it is you just can't because of the injury he has right now. And I think that is really hurting this team. It is hurting this team from an offensive standpoint. It is hurting this team from a defensive standpoint. Because David Fry, I mean, for as much as he struggled, we've seen his bat come through in a big moment in the postseason. Like we just saw it against Detroit. Having his bat in the lineup is valuable. Bo Naylor, we know what he can do with the bat, but he's not consistent with it. Austin Hedges God forbid he ever comes up with the bases loaded and 2 outs and a big spot in the game again. Of course, it had to be Austin Hedges. I knew he was going to strike out. I mean, my roommate that I live with on campus is a Yankee fan, so he was getting really worried. And I'm like, dude, do you know who's at the plate right now? And he's like, Austin Hedges. And I'm like, yeah, Austin Hedges. And he went, what's so bad? He doesn't know baseball as in depth as some other people out there. And I'm like, watch him strike out. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, you could put every dollar you owe or you have to your name on that, and it will happen. So yeah.
I mean, now at this point, you have to win one game in the Bronx. At the very least, you might probably have to win 2 because at this point, best case scenario for Cleveland, I see New York entering or going back to the Bronx with a 3-2 lead. I mean, obviously, best case is Cleveland has that 3-2 lead and they defend home field, something that for the most part, they did really, really well at doing this season. Kind of faltered down the stretch, but did a really nice job at being able to defend home field. And I mean, did it in a big spot against the Detroit Tigers and ended a streak of losses while facing elimination in the postseason in franchise history. But this Yankee team is different. And I spoke on it earlier. Every team came into the postseason with a weakness. The Guardians' strength in the bullpen was the Yankees' weakness. Their bullpen was just not playing well. And yes, it's had a couple really shaky moments so far in this series, but for the most part, it has been really good. And it absolutely showed up in that series against Kansas City. Luke Weaver has really taken over Clay Holmes' role to be that closer, and Clay Holmes is still pitching really, really well. You got a guy like Tim Hill, who, I mean, has struggled in this series so far, struggled in game 1 especially, but came up really nice and came up big in game 2. Conley was another guy that came in and started to pitch well. Like, the Yankees have found rhythm with their bullpen. And I mean, now try to go comb through that Yankees team. I can't really find a weakness within them right now.
No, but I mean, coming down these next couple games, there's a big question mark, and it's, can the other 2 starters get it done? And
Matthew Boyd has looked amazing. And so here's another conversation too. You could pitch Tanner Bybee in game 4 because he did not go that long in game 2. You could pitch.
I want to say he threw around like 30 pitches. So yeah, you have a good point there. So I just want to run through real quick. The Yankees for game 3 have Clark Schmidt on the mound, and game 4, Luis Gil. So 2 guys that they're solid pitcher. Yeah, they're solid pitchers, but
Bybee only threw 40 pitches. He threw 39 pitches.
Did he?
Yeah, he threw 39 pitches, 25 strikes.
Yeah, I don't see them leaving him out there long at all if they do, but I could definitely see them going back to Bybee.
I mean, but you look at Cleveland starters this year, no one has gotten 5 innings.
Right. So.
And they used 3 of the big 4, as people are calling it now, that being Smith, Heron, Gaddis, and of course, my apologies, of course, the likes of Emmanuel Clase. By the way, great job on the addition of Ben Lively. I don't think they're going to use him as a starter, but using him out of the pen as sort of a guy that can get you innings, sort of what Pedro Avila has done so far. And Pedro Avila only pitched 3 pitches. He only pitched 1 out in that game too. But I mean, you have guys now that can prove to eat innings. Ben Lively can eat you innings. Pedro Avila can eat you innings. Even Cade Smith has gone out there and proved, hey, I can go a little bit longer than you guys think.
Right. And another name that we haven't seen is Gavin Williams. I mean, you have him to your disposal. He's really shaky, but I mean, he can eat innings if he's on fire. So
Boyd is starting game 3. I don't think the starter for game 4 is known at this point. It wouldn't shock me if it was Tanner Bybee. I mean, maybe, especially if you lose game 3, maybe you just try something different. I mean, if you lose game 3, the series might very well be over. Game 3, people are saying game 2 was a must win. And I mean, like, yeah, it would have been nice to win it. No, game 3 is a must win.
Yeah, 100%. If you don't get this, I think it's over, obviously. Not many teams come back down 3-0, so, and especially with the
Red
shaky
Sox
starting
did
pitching.
it against the Yankees.
But we don't want to be in that situation regardless. We want to take game 3. Don't even have to worry about it.
Yeah, no, gotta have it game 3. It's a gotta have it game 3. It'll be tomorrow, I believe, at 5:08 Eastern time. And I mean, this is where a lot of strategy comes into play now, because you with the ALDS, with the way that things were shifted, you had 2-2-1. You had quite a few off days, and your bullpen could get some rest, and that helped the Guardians out, especially in Game 5, a whole ton. Now, I mean, you had to use your bullpen a lot. They pitched 6 or 7, maybe even 8 different pitchers in every single game that they played there in the Bronx. Well, I shouldn't say every single. It was only 2. But now coming back, you have to play 3 straight games. And if your starter cannot give you something, if Matthew Boyd does not look good and they pull him and they have to go to the bullpen really, really early, that's going to hurt them in Game 4. That's going to hurt them in Game 5. You're going to need some of those guys that can eat innings. You're going to need Cantillo to be good. You're going to need Avila to be good. You're going to need Cade Smith to continue to do what he's done and eat those innings. You're going to need Ben Lively to step in. So I think it's really smart getting Cobb off the roster and Ben Lively on, because Cobb hasn't pitched all that well. And we honestly, as sad as it is, Alex Cobb has had a pretty darn good career. We might be seeing that come to an end. Maybe he has a year or 2 left. But getting Ben Lively in, I don't think they're going to use him as a starter. Use him out of the pen to eat innings. Great. Love it. Cantillo, young kid, been shaky, but use him out of the pen to get innings. Love it. Cade Smith has been proven that he can go a little over an inning. And Emmanuel Clase's had a couple moments this year where he's come in and pitched twice. Or I should say 2 innings. So,
yeah, 100%.
So, I mean, the keys moving forward, obviously the big thing, Matthew Boyd, whoever the starter happens to be, they have to give you stuff. They have to give you a really good performance. You got to drive runs in, which means you have to get those big hits. Again, they only scored 2 in Game 1 and 3 in Game 2, which in the Detroit series, we were kind of saying 3 to 4 runs. That's going to be able to win you some games. Against the Yankees, you're going to need 5, 6, maybe 7.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, umpiring did not help us out at all last night.
That umpire was awful.
And I was scrolling on Twitter. We made a playoff history. Gabe Morales missed a playoff high 18 calls.
Yep. Game 1 umpire was not much better.
He was to an extent, but I mean, obviously he wasn't good either. Yeah. And Morales was ranked 63rd out of 90 umpires during the regular season. So, I mean, that just kind of shows you why is he getting the call in the ALCS?
Right.
So,
okay, one quick thing. If we have no more thoughts on guard ball, again, Game 3 and 4 will be Thursday, Friday, and if the Guardians can avoid a sweep, there will be a Game 3 in Cleveland on Saturday, and then if it goes back to the Bronx, hopefully we'd be able to talk about the series before then, but if not, it would be Monday at 5, and then Tuesday at, what does that say? Tuesday at 7:30. So
nice.
Yeah, so there you go. There's kind of where the series is going to be lying there from that point forward. Okay, one thing I do want to touch on within the minor league system right now is, I mean, we've been seeing Tolentino and Huff and a lot of these other guys have some pretty okay performances. I think in the past game, Tolentino ended up playing pretty well. But one guy that we mentioned last show that we were really excited to see sort of in this Arizona Fall League was Chase DeLauder. And that was because, we wanted to see how he played. He is being limited to, from everything I understand, I think a Wednesday and Sunday schedule. It might not be exactly those 2 days, but I think he's only playing 2 days right now. Why do you think that is?
Obviously, it's because he's played 30 games this year, and you don't want him to go down again. Obviously, you got to protect him at all costs, and the worst possible thing would be playing him in an Arizona league constantly, have him go down. That pretty much means nothing. I mean, these are pretty much scrimmage games, but yeah, you just got to make sure he doesn't get hurt. You can start him in Columbus and then potentially maybe even get to the majors next season.
Well, as of 11 minutes ago, speaking of Chase DeLauder, thank you, Guardians Prospective. DeLauder just I'm going to read this word for word, but 23-year-old outfield prospect Chase DeLauder just crushed his first home run in the 2024 Arizona Fall League. DeLauder with a 425-foot 2-run bomb, 109 mile per hour off the bat in the first inning of the ball game.
Nice. I mean, that's what you want out of him.
425, 109 exit velo. Absolutely what
Nuts.
we need to keep seeing out of Chase DeLauder. Other than that, I haven't really
No,
kept
yeah.
up with the fall league too much. But I know you're working on trying to get some interviews and things set up. But anything in the chat as far as guard ball goes, maybe anything in the prospect list, or are we
Yeah.
quiet again?
We got something going back to the Soto Judge. Obviously, right. Both batters are scary. Bottom line,
Yeah,
you don't want
and
to face either of them.
I'd be very curious to see what Hensel Media, thank you for commenting, by the way, had to say about. I mean, obviously Judge hit the first home run, and that's going to spell doom for the Guardians moving forward, because now, I mean, it's not that Aaron Judge didn't lose confidence at the plate, because that's not it at all. Aaron Judge had all the confidence in the world at the plate,
yeah.
but now that he's seen one go over the fence with as explosive as Aaron Judge can be, you gotta be really careful.
Yeah.
But Soto
100%.
had been performing better up into the playoffs at that point. Both are really dangerous hitters. And I mean, obviously, knowing what we know now, if Aaron Judge, or I'd say, I mean, who knows what Juan Soto would have done, but you limit the damage to only 2 in that inning, 1 in that certain situation. But wild pitches, they got to get cleaned up. Defense, it's got to get cleaned up. There was the air. Now, Will Brennan's made some good catches, but Brennan had the air in right field.
That's another thing I would like to bring up. The whole
really quickly here.
Yeah, Will Brennan Noel situation. Who would you go with? Because I'm fully on the Will Brennan train. I know he can't really hit, but Noel has played significantly less time, and he has an RBI. Noel, I don't think still has a hit. He might have one. I think he got one in New York, but
Jonk has a hit.
It goes back to the
right
defense thing again. Bo Naylor, I'd rather have defense and
well,
a guy
okay,
that's
so
around the same.
So that ball that was down the foul pole, and I've agreed on this certain topic with you, or this certain aspect of this topic with you, but that ball that's down the foul line that Brennan slid and caught in foul territory, Jonk wouldn't have caught that. Some of the sliding catches that Brennan has made, I mean, maybe Jonk comes up with those. That's kind of 50-50 for Jonk. I mean, we've seen him make some good catches. Everyone that can play the outfield for the Guardians, Quan, Thomas, and whether it's Jonk or Brennan, that they have a really good arm. Now, John Kenzie Noel probably has a better arm than what Will Brennan does.
100%.
And I think Jonk has more power than what Will Brennan does. And up to this point, I know Will Brennan or Jonk has played a lot more than what Will Brennan has in the postseason so far, but Jonk has an RBI. He's shown you that he's been able to hit, and Brennan has really struggled at the plate. And he's, I believe Jonk has an RBI. If not, he has at least one hit. I might be thinking about the stat sheet wrong, but I know he at least has one hit because he got one.
He has one hit, no RBIs. Will Brennan, in 5 less plate appearances, has one hit and an RBI. He has a hit and an RBI.
Okay, so there you go. Yeah, that's right. He does have the RBI.
5 less at bats. He's done better.
Strikeout rate pretty much similar there. Neither of them have drawn a walk. I mean, it's really hard because, I mean, with as much as Vogt has gone to the pinch hitter in this postseason, one of the two, if not both of them, are going to come up if the situation calls for it. Jonk's just got more power. Like, we know both of them can hit home runs. Brennan is going to be a guy that can come in there and drive in 1 or 2 with the bases are loaded.
And I think
the fact of the matter is John Kenzie Noel is a guy that can get all 4 home.
But in a bases loaded situation, instead of a guy in Noel who's just going to swing it pretty much, it seems, anything, with his chase rate being through the roof, I'd rather have a Will Brennan who can at least put the ball in play and more than likely get a base hit that can drive those guys in instead of all 4.
So the last thing I do want to talk about here is what you want to see done with the lineup, because I think there has to be something that changes. I think there's got to be something. Something has got to get mixed up with this lineup. So here's what I want. I want Quan leading off still because he's been absolutely amazing so far.
Obviously.
Let's put Rocchio in the 2-hole. Why not?
But my thing with that is, right, and
if you want to come out and you want to make a statement, and I mean, it is imperative that the Guardians limit the Yankees' damage in the first inning and get on the board early. Why not put your 2 hottest hitters
Yeah.
at 1 and 2. Now,
It makes
and again,
sense.
the counter argument is going to be, well, I mean, Rocchio's hitting well in that 9 hole.
Yeah.
You get him on base, then you have Steven Kwan coming up right afterwards. But the DH spot hasn't really done well. If you get Kwan on base and then Rocchio gets on base, and then you have Jose Ramirez behind him, who, again, OPS, batting average, everything not great in the postseason. He's got a couple homers in this postseason. He has a couple hits. He's provided a couple big moments. Then you go Lane Thomas, Josh Naylor, and Andres Jimenez, or maybe the designated hitter at that point in the 6 hole. Then you go with Jimenez, or I should say, then you go with whoever your right fielder would be, whether that's Jonk or Brennan, then Jimenez in 8, and then whoever you want to play in catcher at 9. Like, that's... So to recap, because that was kind of messy for me, Kwan in 1, Rocchio at 2, and then your usual suspects. You have Ramirez in the 3 hole. I'd probably like to see Thomas in the 4, but I think it depends on the pitching matchup, because if it's a lefty pitcher, you'll put Thomas in the cleanup hitter. If it's a righty pitcher, you'll put Naylor there. So again, that I don't really care. You can go back and forth on that. And then whoever your DH happens to be, whether that's Fry, Manzardo, even if you want to play Jonk in the DH spot, again, whoever it happens to be, there's your 6 hole guy. 7 spot is whoever your right fielder happens to be. So Jonk or Brennan, maybe even a guy like Daniel Schneemann if they try him. Sure. And then you play Andres Jimenez in the 8 hole, and then your automatic out catcher down there in the 9 hole.
Yeah, something similar. Obviously, Kwan and Lane Thomas is that's your outfield. I'd like to see Will Brennan over Noel, just to obviously have them more contact in there. Rocchio, I'm not mad with if you would put him at the 2 hole, but again, my only other concern with that is some guys, there's a little more added pressure if you put them toward the top of the lineup, and we saw that with Tyler Freeman. So
who actually hit really well in the leadoff spot,
which
and then
was
when
weird
Kwan
with him,
came back and they kept him high.
Put him down. Freeman did a little worse when he was not hitting in that leadoff spot.
And usually it's the opposite.
Right. So it could be the case with Rocchio. Maybe he likes the bottom of the order, a little less pressure, maybe something that, to that degree. And then I don't want to see.
And it's a very nice sort of lead into the back of the top of the order. Right. The only problem with that is then just for the majority of the way things have gone this year, you have Rocchio at 9, then you have Kwan at 1. And I mean, the Guardians have utilized that combo really well against the Yankees so far, been able to get on base. But then you have the 2 hole hitter, which has been the DH, Manzardo's come through at times, Fry has come through at times, but especially within this Yankee series, it just hasn't been consistent production from the DH. And if you want to make a statement early, why not switch up the lineup? You're already down 2-0 at this point. This is a must-win game 3. Why not try something out of the ordinary here? I mean, to most Guardians fans, yes, it would be wonderful to get back to a World Series. This has already been a more successful season than many Guardians fans pictured. I was prepared to lose 100 games coming in to this year. Sitting at an ALCS against the New York Yankees, that is wonderful.
Right.
Try something.
In that DH spot, I mean, I don't want to see Manzardo either. I want to see Fry. I mean, he's been the hottest guy at the plate. And then the only other recommendation I have is it's just I don't want to see Bo Naylor like at all anymore. I just want to play Hedges. Have that feel safe when you're on defense. Yeah, I mean, Hedges can pick balls. He can throw guys out. Obviously, whoever you put in the hitting, it's an automatic out, like you said. So you're gonna have to hide him in the lineup, either probably in the 8 spot because you're gonna have Rocchio hit 9. I don't really see them throwing him at the 2 hole, but
I do.
Yeah,
I mean
that's really it.
I don't know if it's necessarily. I don't know if that's necessarily what I'm predicting. I'm not like predicting that he's gonna be thrown into the 2 hole, but I would like to see it happen. Yeah. I would. He's been hot.
Switch it up. Throw the Yankees off. I like it.
Absolutely.
Not bad.
If we have no other comments, we can close out the show here. If we do, please flash it up. We can talk about it.
Nothing else from the chat?
Good. Let's close it out then, shall we? Hey, Guards, Thursday, Friday, at least, hopefully, there's a Sunday or a Saturday game, I should say, to be had. And then if the series would shift back to the Bronx, hopefully we will still have Guard Ball to be talking about at that point. But Monday and Tuesday next week would be the Guardians playoff game. So,
yeah, going to be tough. Obviously, the Yankees, who pretty much
owned
hard. Us, but got to get hot. It's definitely doable.
Yeah, so. You know, you would have liked to take one in New York, absolutely, but Hey, it's just up to the Guardians now to defend what they have defended all season long, and that is home field.
1000%.
All right, my friend, you can close this one out.
Appreciate every 81 of you today. Got up to
Woo!
81. Yep, big show. Nice little
There we
Guardians
go.
postseason show.
Yeah,
So
hopefully,
appreciate everybody. Hopefully
we
we're
got a
back
couple
next
more
week.
of these.
Yeah, hopefully we're back next week. Week after that, maybe let's not get too ahead of ourselves, but
Yeah,
maybe
let's not get too
previewing a
ahead
World
of
Series
ourselves.
if we get a little hot.
Maybe. Let's
get a little
see.
hot.
Let's see. We'll see. Sorry. Excuse me. Yeah. Well, again, just keep an eye out on Twitter. We'll let you know when we're on. Go Guards. Hopefully they can make a little comeback effort.
Appreciate everybody watching. See you in the next one.